Today on Lightning Bugs.
I started writing serious songs when I was like 12, 13, 14.
Serious songs.
Serious songs. And I registered them with the Library of Congress.
Me too. Yeah, you send it in your envelope and everything. Yeah.
No one would want to steal my great song, When I Was a Boy, from the eyes of a 15-year-old who went to war.
That's so good. Did you record them?
On cassettes, you know.
Do you still have those?
Yeah. When I was a boy, I wished I would get older. When I was a youth, I was gonna be a soldier. Do I need to go on? You know, I was 14 with a high voice singing a song about coming back from Vietnam.
The song that I have called Boxing is like, I'm about to retire. I wrote that when I was 17 years old.
You did?
Well, it's about being an old man. And it's like, well, we have no idea. Hi, if you're enjoying listening to Lightning Bugs, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps a lot. Hello, and welcome to my little podcast, Lightning Bugs, Conversations with me, Ben Folds. Today's creative conversation is with one of the most creative people you'll ever meet. The man really doesn't need an intro. That's a cliche. Who needs to introduce Bob Saget by anything than saying, here's my conversation with Bob Saget. So, Bob.
People know how incredibly bright you are because you have so many books behind you.
I know.
But if they're watching it on YouTube.
Dirty Daddy. It's right
is
there.
It right there?
Yeah, right.
Oh, wow. See, if you're watching on YouTube, it's all a beautiful masquerade.
This podcast is about creativity. Studying creativity could almost be done just letting you talk.
Well, same with you. I mean, you're always creating. Literally every conversation that we have is stimulating. Even if it's silly, that's the fun part. I mean, that's like a gift.
Our talks go all over the shop. I've noticed that before, and I don't even. In fact, I was really impressed when I did your podcast. You kind of kept us on. You kind of kept us on track.
I know. What is that? That's not my natural. Well, actually, I think I'm more disciplined than ever because I'm just finished writing a movie script, and I'm always doing the podcast, and now I'm planning to go back and do dates again, do stand-up again. I get the belly button swab because some people were doing, all the jokes have been that the rectal swab.
Yeah.
But then if you do the rectal swab and put it up to your nose and you smell poo, you don't have COVID. So that's really the test. There's 19 comedians, I think, that have done a version of that. But I thought of it early on because I'm such a genius.
This is what I love about comedy is that old school pass it around. It's like these passed around stories like the Aristocrats.
Yeah, thank you. Not the kid movie, the Aristocrats, right?
I always get it backwards. The Aristocrats.
Right. It's the one that the joke is that parents back in the day when DVDs were the walk of the land, that you don't want to get the Aristocats and the Aristocrats in the wrong DVD box because your kids end up finding about disgusting, heinous acts rather than just cute animated cats.
I'm sure this is an old question for you, but did people who saw that movie think that you suddenly learned dirty words?
I think I had done a special on HBO before it called That Ain't Right. And that was I said fuck so many times that you could have made a drinking game. And I was performing at Skirball Theater at NYU. So I played to where I was at and who I was with. And I kind of used the word as a rim shot in a way. And I haven't used it that much since. People think I'm dirtier than I am because I don't usually go into graphic gynecological stuff. I don't do that, but it's perceived that way, I think, because of the family image from family television.
Well, it's that split screen that makes your career fascinating, and people probably exaggerate that a little bit. I remember you telling me about a video someone had sent in during the America's Funniest Home Movies, and it was some guy looked like he really got injured badly in a pool, and they thought that you would think that was funny. And to me, for someone to think that you would think it was funny that someone got hurt is absolutely the biggest misunderstanding of your personality.
That was one of my issues is they would have people going full. They at one point made a video package of old people falling and on cement. And then they wanted to cut to the audience. They would always pull it up so there was no space. So you'd see an old man fall down on cement and somebody in the audience going, like laughing, throwing their head back, like this is real entertainment. And that kind of is where we're at. I mean, if you look at Instagram and TikTok and all the stuff people are looking at and all over YouTube, there was none of that when I did the show. It's a lot of hard falls that people don't recover from, but nobody cares because I care, but people are immune to violence and pain, and they just really do laugh more at other people's misfortunes now than they used to, and politics hasn't helped.
It's no good, but it's funny that people would misunderstand that. It makes me realize you're probably a little bit on the enigmatic side, whether you realize it or not. It's not something I considered until we were talking about it, and you were telling me about all the things that people would think you would think was funny that were mean. And I thought, wow, I never picked that up off of you from the first time I met you. It doesn't make any sense at all. And then I thought, God, who are they seeing? Like this guy with the filthiest mouth in the world and all this kind of, like, there would be a perception of that somewhere out there. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was either that, like, hey, roast my friend, and then say all these things to me that I would never say to another human being. But I would do it if the timing was right and if someone heckled me and if it just felt fun. But those days are kind of how everybody's talking now, but there's no laughs. Everything we watch on the news is a lot of eye rolling and a lot of sarcasm and cynicism, and that stuff doesn't travel too well. And I think I want to think there's more levels to me.
You went to film school, right?
Right.
I've seen you like quasi-directing. I've never been there for like something serious you've done where you've directed, but you're seriously good at that. And you're a writer.
I love doing it. I want to get really great at it. So I just have to direct more. And I just wrote something that I'm very excited about. And people will be too when they find out what it is.
Well, the reason for this podcast is so that people who are creative, and I think that's pretty much everybody, because that's what people have to do. I mean, you create and you have ideas all day long, but there is a muscle that you have to learn to use to get out of the various ruts or to make the most of it. Can we just go to like writing for stand-up comedy first? Like that's kind of home base. Has that changed for you over the years when you first started? Because I hear comedians all the time saying, I had enough material for 10 minutes. And Jerry Seinfeld says he has enough for 2 hours now. I mean, I know he's got more than that, but he thinks he's got 2 hours that are worth someone doing. That's an entire lifetime boiled down to 2 hours.
He's kept all the files on it all. And I used to have files, but he wrote his most recent book is really great. It's all the jokes he ever loved and wrote from then until about a year ago. He's a true craftsman at the trade, at the art form.
When did you think, okay, I can go up on stage, I have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour? Or as a kid, were you delusional and thought you had 2 hours? I mean, where were you when you first got the balls to stand up on stage and do this?
The first time I did stand up, I made a movie. It's not even a movie. It's just,
yeah, it is a movie.
I started writing serious songs when I was like 12, 13, 14.
Serious songs.
Serious songs, and I registered them with the Library of Congress.
Me too. Yeah, you send it in your envelope and everything. Yeah.
No one would want to steal my great song, When I Was a Boy, from the eyes of a 15-year-old who went to war.
That's so good. Did you record them?
On cassettes,
Do you still have those?
Yeah. When I was a boy, I wished I would get older. When I was a youth, I was going to be a soldier. Do I need to go on? I was 14 with a high voice singing a song about coming back from Vietnam.
The song that I have called Boxing is like, I'm about to retire. I wrote that when I was 17 years old.
You did?
Well, it's about being an old man. And it's like, well, we have no idea being all
you're
wise.
Masterful. I was just trying. I knew.
But you were doing this when you were like 9 or 12. My stuff when I was 9 or 12 was they were dirty songs. I had a little bit of a hit song at school. I brought it on a cassette tape and passed around was called, it was Having Two Dicks is Cool.
Well, that's probably not wrong.
No, it's not. And it was a serious song. It's a ballad.
You are one of the most creative people that I've ever known that exists anyway. And a lot of your stuff is funny and it paints a picture. But boxing, it's about Ali and Howard Cosell, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what age you were. It's just and it's a waltz. I mean, I love when you write waltzes.
The thing is back when we were kids, a conversation on a sports channel between the heavyweight champion and the TV presenter, they were like deep philosophical. Sometimes they were silly, You remember the time that Ali tried to pull the wig off of Howard Cosell? I mean, that's silly, but you'd never see that now. But
no, it was a really evolved level of the wrestling acting bit that seems real with WWE people that are good at it. I mean, look where The Rock came from. Look where a lot of people came from. But this was highly evolved. Billy Crystal used to do the best Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali. Oh, it's amazing. People can find that online. I'm writing dirty songs. My new stuff, all my last 4 specials have had dirty music in them. Not dirty. It's not all dirty, but it's silly. It is. It's silly, dirty.
That's a big reason for having a song. That's one way of people getting together and just celebrating how ridiculous life is just singing a silly song together. I mean, what's interesting is that your first songs were serious. Your first songs were serious, and my first songs were about having two dicks is cool, which sounds like, people would say, okay, who wrote this and who wrote that?
I'll walk around and the iPhone's my friend and the notes are my friend. And it'll be middle of the night, it'll be all day. And a switch goes off and goes, don't not write that down. It used to be bar napkins at the end of a show. Everybody wrote their jokes on a bar napkin. Some people had their notebook with them. I would go and type it into my computer. I used to have notebooks. And that's a lot. I've got hours and hours. I couldn't do most of it. But my first 10 were pretty funny and weird, and they got me started,
I still write songs in notebooks, but otherwise I use computers all the time. Let's hear from the Peanut Gallery again and see what your questions are. This one is a voicemail from Kate.
Hi, Ben. Kate Ray coming in here from regional Victoria. My podcast question is, what's one of your best memories of creating a piece of art as a kid? Hope that helps. I guess it depends if it's a music interviewee or if it's writing or something else. Okay. But I thought it's an interesting question. Okay, good luck. Thank you. Bye.
Right on. Thanks, Kate. Wow, I always have trouble with those what's the most or what's my favorite. Some of you might know that by now. I always say I don't have a favorite or I don't have a most or least anything. Let me think. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Maybe not a very specific instance, but I loved getting home from school, off the bus, opening the front door and going straight to the piano and making up songs. That's what I really, really loved when I was like 10, 11 years old. I'd say between 10 and 13 years old, the joy of that is I've never gotten back quite to that. I think it became work more after that, which I still enjoyed from time to time. I'm one of those, I'm happy that I created. I'm not always happy while I'm creating. I put a lot of pressure on myself. But I would say that that those memories of just dropping the school bag next to the piano bench and just everyone else has gone out to play and I'm doing that, the idea that I was about to have a little tune, a little song that I'd never heard before and get to record it on a tape recorder and listen to it was fantastic. And I still was young enough to have an ego about it too. Like I thought, man, this is the shit. I just wrote a damn #1 hit. So yeah, I loved that. Later on, I began to love the process of recording them. But other than that, I don't remember specifics. And part of the reason I do this podcast is I'm personally trying to find that joy as often as I can, because I think that helps anyone create rather than making it a big drag where you get into ruts all the time. But since ruts are part of it, I like to talk about this too. Anyway, thanks, Kate, for your question. Hope that answers it. And thanks for listening. Larry Fine, you went and visited the Larry from the Three Stooges, and that story just chokes me up. I love that. Tell me the story of it, Bob.
That would be kind of my own version of boxing, of going and seeing someone at the end of their days, near the end. I was 14 and I lived in California for a little bit because my dad was transferred with his company. He sold vibrators door to door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whole car full.
No, he actually was a meat executive. Yeah. Same thing. But Larry Fine spoke at my junior high, Mulholland Junior High in the San Fernando Valley.
And for the kids out there, he's Three Stooges, Larry, Curly, and Moe.
Larry was the one who got his hair ripped out. Moe would, "Come here, you," and he would rip his hair out. And Larry would tell me, my mom drove me. Couldn't drive, so she drove me to Woodland Hills to the Motion Picture Country House and Hospital, which is still in existence, and people support it. It's a wonderful place.
How did you know he was there?
I asked him after the show. I went up to him after the show, after he gave a speech. He talked more to me privately. He told me where he lived, said, "Come visit me." And I was like, okay. I'm 14. He was a nice man from Philadelphia who I watched for years. And so my mom took me there. He'd had a stroke. He was in a wheelchair. When I first went to see him, he wheeled backwards down the hallway because of his stroke in his wheelchair by himself. And he went up. This is only a Three Stooges member could do something in life that really looked like a Three Stooges move. He opened up an envelope. He said, "Oh, good, my teeth are here." And he opened it up, took out teeth out of a thing and just put them in his mouth. Didn't wash them off. Just put his new teeth in his mouth. And he said, "Let's go to my room." So we went to his room. My mom was with me. And he was complaining that Moe used to hurt him. I interviewed him. I have a recording of it. I recorded everything. And he told me how that Larry broke ribs and the fake hair was glued to the real hair. And there was a producer, Jules White, who you would always see on the screen on their shorts, and he robbed them. He took all the money and they got paid very little for their movie shorts that would run before the feature film.
And you still thought after that you would want to be in show business one day?
I didn't. I wanted to be a doctor, but I kept doing things that a showbiz kid would do. So when I was 16, I went to, I'd sneak into All in the Family. And my friend Norman Lear was doing the warm-up for his own show. So I was watching him at 16 years old.
He wasn't your friend at that point. You're some kid and he's doing it.
I was a kid in the audience that snuck in and that got through because I was tall. And then I also saw like Mary Tyler Moore show being filmed, the Bob Newhart show. And I'm having Bob on my podcast. I'm like friends with these greats.
Isn't that amazing?
Well, I'm using them because I'm going to be 65 and they tell me I'm a kid. So I'm just using them. So I think I'm just a child.
Life is like longer than people think it is. We always talk about it being short, but this is a different era. You watch something like All in the Family and it looks like it looks like some olden shit from another century, which it is. And now the guy who was making these and you are buds, and it's like you're not at the beginning of your career. I think it's amazing how long life is.
The first time I did stand-up was after I was 16. I made a movie called Beach Blanket Blintzes, and it was about a 50-foot blintz that climbed up the Empire State Building and turned people into sour cream. And I made a claymation blintz, and I did stop motion with it, moved it a little bit in one frame, moved it a little bit. I would just keep doing all this stuff with no intention of getting in show business.
You had to do it.
It was just me. And then through college, I went to film school. I did stand-up. I won a radio contest. WMMR in Philadelphia, I'm sure. I won $500 with a bunch of adults singing a song that I wrote at 17 called Bondage. And,
17
years
and
old.
that was a funny song then.
Bondage, good, clean fun. It's bondage for everyone. Masochists and sadists unite one and all. Bondage is the rage. Come on, let's have a ball. Ooh, 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 yeah. I didn't sing it because I can't dare with you here.
I love your voice. I do. I mean, I think I've always told you sound like Neil Diamond.
You're gonna make me cry.
Your voice sounds like Neil Diamond's. Like it does. Like it has that kind of.
So funny that you say that, and I've said it to audiences that you say that because I like name dropping. I'm the first person that people stole that joke from. I think that it's bad to name drop. Robert De Niro told me that, and I heard so many talk shows. Some jokes just travel, but I did it like 10 years ago in a special. It's not a genius joke, but it's an obvious flip on words. I did a song in my special. In the one from 2017, which is called 0 to 60, and I wrote a Neil Diamond song, and I wanted Sweet Caroline for the end of it, just to bring everybody in, and I couldn't do it, so I did one version of the filming with the song with the Neil Diamond, and then one without, and then I sent the one with Sweet Caroline. All of it still sounded like Neil Diamond,
That's great.
Sweet Caroline, and so good, so good, so good. And my voice is better than that.
No, you're a lot better than that. I think you're doing your Larry Fine imitation now.
But that song, they didn't approve it, and I even had a joke about it that I asked Neil for permission, but it had to go through his wife, and she sounds just like him. She said no, and then they have a grandson. They put the kid on the phone. No, the whole family sounds like Neil Diamond. But it's a good song, and it was on
Bondage or Sweet Caroline.
My version, Sweet Caroline's. Yeah. Literally, I think will be 500 years from now. People will be singing it. I mean, it's a piece of humanity. I know in his show he sings it like 5 times.
Well, the horn part too. That's always been one of those kind of copyright intellectual property quandaries when a musician or an arranger comes in on a song like Hound Dog, like you ain't never called rabbit and you ain't no friend. And the drummer just did that, but people went around singing that as the main part. Sweet Caroline, da da da.
Even the beginning. I mean, even the dun 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 dun.
It's good shit.
That's so good, and it starts because he knows to start quick.
You talk all the time in terms of things that set other things up, and you just started down that road a little bit. And if we were out talking, you may just abstractly go for 20 minutes and I would learn a whole lot. But I think it's a comedian thing a little bit. Like one time we were doing a show and there were other comedians on. Your take on it had so much to do with what the arc of the night was like because of what each comedian brought to it before you walked on stage. That's intense, like storytelling and dynamics and arc of a piece of art that you're always thinking about.
If I really am working on something that's new, that's important, but usually that's if I do a special, or it's like a really special occasion, like, if you're doing a whole benefit at the Kennedy Center or something, which I've done, and that's like, I can watch the other people, but I'm still concentrating on what I'm going to do, because I like to have a real strong, solid form, and then let myself, you throw it away like you do learning lines in something, and just then you go do it. And then I can deviate because I'm so controlled over what the core. People don't think there's any direction to what I do, but it's completely organized, so I can do it.
How do you keep from actually being that person that is first in line to beat you up for what you do? Anyone who creates, and I think that's almost everyone, one of the worst critics is themselves. It creates all kinds of problems.
Truth.
How do you keep that out of your creative process?
I think I put it in it because, and you do too. You have a lot of self-effacingness in what you do, and the stuff you do in between when you're talking to an audience. You're just a wonderful, humble, brilliant, complex, innocent, and can be the most aggressive guy in the room too, And I for a while, when I first got my new stand-up, every 7 years I turn into something else, but I'm going to run out of 7 years at one point. But
you're good for a while.
Right. For a while, my stand-up was just this bravado, this entourage character I did that would just walk around the stage like I'm a badass. But that was the joke. It wasn't like, that's me. People thought that was me, just like they thought the guy that hosted America's Funniest Home Videos telling groaner dad jokes, that was me also. He's not funny because he does that. It's like, well, no, I'm working for the man. And they're puns, but people go, oh, that's but which is the dumbest thing you can say to a comedian. My attitude is, well, you didn't think of a pun. You didn't try to make something stupid, so it's stupid. So what? I was just trying to break the moment or wordsmith something. But Rodney Dangerfield, who was a friend of mine, he didn't get in the movies. At 58, he was in his first movie, Caddyshack. 58. He'd been doing Vegas, and he'd been on the Tonight Show with Carson and worked his ass off and had 3 names, Jacob Cohen, Jack Roy, Rodney Dangerfield. And he just told me, it is what it is. And then he would also say to me, you don't know cock. And I was like, that's a weird expression. I don't know. I never heard that word used as an adverb. It could catch on. But I was saying, I always feel like I haven't done what I came here to do yet. I always feel that because now I've got a script I wrote that's going to be a movie that's like things are happening now more easily than they did because it's very hard to change people's impressions of you. And I have to be great. If you have to be really, really great. And I don't feel like I've been a couple times, but I don't feel like I have been. So, and Rodney would always say, make fun of yourself first, man, and then they can't make fun of you. But like I was saying to Bill Burr, we were smoking a cigar at my house, like, I don't know, right after quarantine, we didn't know we needed to sit a few more feet apart. But I said, hey, Bill, I haven't even done what I came here to do. And he said, well, you better fucking hurry up.
Okay.
So he's not wrong. He's not wrong. And what he's saying is just do it. Just do it.
You were just saying, your shit has to be great now. And you're probably pickier about it too. And you're more connected to what, when you did a song on television when you were a kid, you weren't privy to everyone's forum, Twitter feedback on it. Now you've got a lot of weight on your shoulders when you create something. How do you do that? Because I think that's what people need to
I'm finding it easier now. I'm finding everything easier now. I have to work all the time because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, I don't have a good night's sleep. It's when I, get my nut doing something creative during the day. Like I just turned a script in and it just felt good. And some people, that want to be screenwriters, some are just brilliant, but not everyone is going to knock it out of the park. Not everyone is Quentin Tarantino, doesn't graduate high school and writes a movie. Some people get, whatever program they're writing on, Final Draft or whatever, and they write the character's name and then they write the dialogue underneath it and then they write some screen direction and they think they're a genius. But the genius is the application program. They don't realize they're going to have to rewrite that a lot unless.
All right.
I don't know many people that haven't rewritten everything a lot.
What do you want your? I like an exercise a week, a podcast. My guest, I'm calling New Week's. I messed up myself. New Week's resolution, and the idea is, you're going to give us all something achievable. That's an exercise that I'll do too. Could be anything. Like this week, once read a couple of poems, or wake up in the morning and write the first word down, or walk backwards for 5 minutes, whatever it is that you think would help would help people who create, of all, whether they're making movies or whether they're
I think
10 years
start
old.
their day with some sort of exercise, whether it be it's as stupid as that sounds, because we're in quarantine,
Physical?
a lot of us, and you do the yoga stuff where you just bend down and reset your vertebrae, and then do 100, 200 sit-ups. Just do them.
Well, that's interesting that the first thing that comes to your mind
You
might
said
be
exercise, so I was very literal. I'll tell you what helps sometimes if you don't want to go through reading some great novel, or maybe you have an inspiring book by your bedside that you can open it at any page and get something out of it. But it's not bad to surf the web and go through brainy quotes or any of those great quotes or inspiring sayings. And then you look up the people that said it and you go, oh, I do respect. Oh, Nelson Mandela said that. And then you look up his history, and people were fine with what happened to him for a while. That's what's so sad about humanity, that they're just wrong. They're just wrong sometimes. And then they got to own it. And I think they do, but then there's a comeuppance. We had a Holocaust, and people were killed not long ago.
No.
And then there's descendants that agree with that. And then it's like, whoa, this can't. And that's what I think we're going through. We're going through a huge change that I think will come out the better for. I think we will.
Well, I'm interested in seeing how all of that, because you're obviously as concerned and upset about it as I think most everyone I know is.
Same here.
And it'll be interesting to see how that impacts what you write. As for the exercise, why don't we just say that that one day this week they're going to go to take about 5 minutes and go find quotes. When you're writing comedy, do you write? You're writing jokes, ideas, arcs of stories, and you worry that it's been done before?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
I worry about a joke when it's been done before. And then I've had jokes lifted that clearly were my joke, but like I did it on The Tonight Show, and then writers from a sitcom stole it. It's like, but that's just, who cares? Write another one,
Well, that is, in a way, it's flattering, and it is comedy, and comedy just does seem to be more communal that way to me.
But with a joke, if I really am obsessed, and I don't even know if I think it's great, I just won't stop doing it. It just, until I can see if it works, and sometimes it just is not there. It doesn't exist.
I've noticed this in music, and you can see it in the Beatles as well. Almost every album I've ever made, I'd say 80% of the budget and that much time is put into trying to save a song that doesn't make the album.
Yeah.
What is
As
that?
a director, I've worked on scenes. After you direct about 5 movies, you start to learn, I don't think it's going to be in the movie, so maybe we should cut it now. Before we go and film it and spend money and lose days or hours, usually days. But that's what I'm trying to, I think that's what comes with experience. It's just that if I'd only concentrated, I was going to go to USC Film School after I didn't go pre-med after Temple Film School. And I just thought I'd be directing comedy, horror movies, and then finally become, in my 30s, an actual filmmaker. And I just had so many things I did. I did improv. I was at the Groundlings workshop for a while. I did improv in Philadelphia. And I studied acting. So I always say I do 5 things, none of them well,
Well, anyone that makes things, and this is why I love that you've done everything, is if you're acting or if you're directing, no matter what you're doing now, you have been in the other people's shoes. If you're a director and you're going to cut someone's scene, you've been the writer before. You've been the person giving notes. You've been the person writing it and directing it. And that's, it's not unusual. I think more artists do that stuff than we think, but it certainly makes it adds that empathy in the process, and also informs your artistry.
I also love it because it teaches you respect for every department of anyone that works on anything.
Yeah.
So, on a movie set or a television set, people are calling each other sir, and however a lady would like to be addressed, however anybody would want to be addressed. And that's the respect that doesn't exist in life. But the key is still you treat everyone with respect. And that's how you get work done. And sometimes people don't because they're in character as an actor, the method stuff. And it is what it is. The person's going to need that for their process. But it's always the don't look at me syndrome. Don't make eye contact. It's like the joke.
Back in the Beatles recording era in England, the engineers wore lab coats, and they weren't allowed to talk to the artist. They were supposed to be invisible.
I did not know that at all.
Yeah. And I don't know what I think of it. In a way, I've recorded before where I worried what the assistant engineer thought of a new lyric I was bringing in, and that did bother me. And so I can see that the idea is that the artist feels that there's no judgment and there's nothing there. I guess that's why that was.
I understand that. And I can also understand, and I've done this before when someone's like in my eye line when I'm acting, and it's like, what are you doing there? I had to kiss a woman in a television movie once, and my mother was right behind her head in the distance. My mother, Dolly.
She was really there, or you were just imagining?
She was alive. It was years ago. And so every time I kissed her, my mother was like, "That's my Bobby." And it was so creepy. I just said to the assistant director, please take her anywhere. Go put her in a director's chair and give her some peanuts. It was really weird, but that I understand all that too. And also I would think you don't want to see, we've all seen things where people in the control room are yawning, or they're not interested, and that's not what you want as part of your process. And you don't want anything. Positiveness always helps, but you don't want anybody getting in your head.
Even though we might not call ourselves working class, we both have working class ethics, and some of that is in our upbringing. And you're proud of the fact that you work all the time.
But you work all the time.
We both work all the time. And your work right now, it's you at work right now. That's you at work right now with a fucking suitcase propped underneath your laptop.
Yeah.
Everyone I know in the entertainment business and the time I spent in Los Angeles works their asses off.
Yeah,
and they're from everywhere.
Good.
And they're from everywhere. They're from, Jason's from Kansas, and you're from everywhere. And I don't know. It's too bad, because creative work is definitely work. I had to do a cameo in something. I think it was Community, the TV show Community, and I was
Which is fun.
I was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And you just said, just say the lines. It's like, actually, when it comes down to it, there's more to it, and you explained that, but you said, just do that.
The energy you're going to get from everybody else, so you'll know where you have to go. It's like knowing when you're playing jazz, you got to fit in when the other parts are being played.
Yeah.
And it's just that.
It's scary.
Except in jazz, you don't really have lines that you would know, but you do things that are kind of familiar.
No, jazz, there's a lot of form to that. There's a lot of form going on. You're following
more than people think, and you're saying that much more than people think, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not really freestyling. It's, so that was really helpful for me, because beginning from that place of just saying the lines, then that was in rehearsal. Then it's like, oh, okay, well, this guy's screaming in my face. Now I understand. But if I walked in trying to think about how I was going to muscle the part, that would have been difficult. So I learned
thinking is your enemy. Learning the lines and knowing them. And if it's well written, you learn them. You don't memorize them.
What about for those word perfect things? So was Full House a word perfect thing where people would come up to you and say,
Not with me, it wasn't, but they tried. And I tried. People wanted it said a certain way. And there were times where, and there were a few directors that would give line readings, and that's like, I sure love you, honey. And it's like, what? Nobody talks like that. No,
I know.
I got to make it sound like I talk.
You starred in the show, so you could do that. I mean, when I've sat in on things, Community and You're the Worst and stuff, there's a nice lady who keeps coming up to me and saying, you didn't say it or they or.
I had that when I was doing Fuller House, and it was a script supervisor, and she was wonderful and brilliant and helped me a lot. But she would say, you didn't say it this way. I said, I don't think this one matters, And she would go, it doesn't, but that's what they want.
That's her job, yeah. And you respect that.
And absolutely. And some people were more of a school teacher principal about it that I've worked with over the years. And those are the ones that you or I then become the obstinate bad boy. That's when we become the kid in high school that will purposely say it the wrong way.
If there are 5 ways to say something, and you've said a natural version, at least for you, and it works in the scene, what is the point? Is it a workflow thing? Like why are some of these shoots word perfect shoots?
Well, some directors, and mainly writers, if they're writers and exec producers, they really treasure their words. And I understand it sometimes. A lot of times I understand it. I mean, if you're doing, David Mamet, you get it word perfect. It's David Mamet. If you have an idea, you can tell him. If you have access, it depends on what you're doing. If it's Aaron Sorkin, David E. Kelley, why not do it word perfect? I mean, if you have something to add because you feel that your version of the character is not that, or would maybe not feel this way. The thing I'm working on now, they've adjusted the script to give me more dimension and allow the character it'll be much more fun and believable, which only makes the movie that much more. And that's when you're working with collaborative people where everything's not so precious. But if you're working with masters of the game, why not take advantage that you've got the best words you're going to get?
Well, I think my problem was just really not being able to quite remember it right and trying to do what I thought was most important, which is remember why I was saying it. So if it was like, you're going to need to leave now is the way I said it. And then they would say, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. And I couldn't tell the difference between the two. That was my problem. It wasn't like I thought I was improving it. that's the best that I could do. And I'd be like, oh,
but I think they were probably writing for you. So they chose the more polite version of you asking someone to leave. Was Chevy Chase on the show at that time?
He had just left so
it was pretty easy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, actually, the show that I was in, they mentioned that he's dead in the show, and that's it. And that was he had been in the one before. They didn't exit him anyway. Someone just walked into a room and said, "Oh, he's dead." Really? And they just kept on. It was brutal.
Well, on MASH, McLean Stevenson, who was wonderful on the TV series MASH, I think I've just lost 3 generations of audience, but it was Alan Alda, and it was pretty damn great. It's Larry Gelbart, one of the greatest writers, and then McLean Stevenson was, I understand, difficult and really didn't enjoy the show and was a negative presence, and they blew him up in a helicopter.
Oh, God.
And that was it. I guess he went home and they used whatever footage they had and they blew him up in a helicopter. And I've been around productions that had to do that with someone. They either had a real issue or you had to change things on the fly. And that's unfortunate when things like that happen. There's an old saying, and I'm sure you've heard it with music, with everything. With everything you work on, there's always an asshole. I just hope it's not me.
Yeah. I mean, after a while, you start to realize it might be. Sometimes.
It has been.
I took that on finally in probably my 40s. I started realizing I'd look back at something like with the band or something. I'd think, wow, I was awful, but I actually didn't know it. I mean, deep down, because it doesn't feel right.
Well, it is an age thing usually, because humility isn't like inbred into someone that finds out in their 20s they're amazing at something. And they just, or in their teens, if they're all of a sudden a movie star. So when you see a young actor, actress being kind and knows the proper way to interact with people, in addition to being super talented, because we've got some of those people. That's a gift when
It's
someone's like that.
amazing. Yeah,
It's
that
beautiful.
really is.
It's really wonderful.
How's your knee?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
And
I have a trick knee. Sometimes it likes to do pranks on me.
You impromptu went up on a stage, I think, and you just by taking the step up, it's the way that shit happens.
That was John Stamos was on in Bye Bye Birdie, and the stage broke, and Don Rickles was in the audience. I miss him. And he said, Don, you want to come up on stage? And Don said, I'm too old for this. I got to go to bed. Get a haircut. Total non sequitur. And then he said, Bob's here. Do you want Bob to come up? And they applauded. So I heard applause. So I went to the stage. And instead of doing what you're supposed to do, because it's like 5.5 feet to get to a stage from, you don't want to fall in the orchestra pit. And the gentleman working security is a friend of mine, and John's. So he helped me. But you're supposed to go butt first, and then you bring yourself up like anybody would.
Yeah,
forget your age.
You did it
as
Superman style.
I did a step.
5 foot
I was
step.
taking a step, like I was Dick Van Dyke when he was pliable, and
when he was 80,
my bone shard shot out of my kneecap.
Jesus Christ!
So I said I blew my knee, which is hard to do. That's why I suggest sit-ups for everybody.
That's your exercise. Forget the book of quotes. You actually want people to do and maybe exercise your VMO muscle. Do those.
I exercise my Venmo every day. I'm
I don't even
working
know
on
what
my
Venmo
PayPal.
is. Oh, that's the thing you pay people with.
But we talked about it. I still want to do something with you. I don't know what it'll be. Musical.
Well, one of them will be on this because I make sure that all my guests give me a few bars of something, and then I'm turning that into something. I can send you a couple of examples, but it's not even really necessary. You'll understand if you just were to go.
I get it.
It doesn't even have to have words. If the first thing you did was go da 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 da, then we'd have a song.
What comes to mind is just sitting here in quarantine worrying about my prostate.
Give me a melody. First melody that comes to mind.
Okay.
It can be one note.
Sitting here in quarantine and thinking about my prostate. Something
That's
like
good.
that.
Sitting here in quarantine.
Is that one of your tunes?
Thinking about my prostate.
No, it sounds like another song though. Got me another day. Well, it's Saturday night and I ain't got no prostate. That's not it. So let me try another one.
That's good.
Diet sodas are the end of me.
I'm going to let you keep going. This is good.
Yeah, let me come up with more. My hands are so dry. I hate Purell. I wish I was wiser. Too much sanitizer. I'm down to the bone. I want to
sing
go
I'm down
home.
to the bone one more time.
I'm down to the bone.
Now resolve it this time.
I want to go home.
Awesome. I think we got something. I'm going to work with that.
Really?
I think so. I mean, if you want to keep going, I never.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, it's melancholy, but I like that stuff.
All right, you take care of yourself. So Bob went straight into music and everything for me. Like he was. This is the thing about comedians. It's like you just say go, and sometimes they just go. It's one of the most creative and brave art forms, I think, in entertainment is comedians for that reason. They have to be really good at improvising and throwing ideas back and forth to each other. So you say, "Give me a song, Bob," and he just gave me all this stuff. Here's the one that struck me, and I'll tell you why, because he thought it was one thing, and I found it to be another. And of course, I like that because I like a curveball sometimes. He gave me sitting here in quarantine, thinking about my prostate. But he sang it to a song that it was familiar. Like it came out and he realized, and you'll hear that. He's like, you're in quarantine, thinking about my... God, he's got such a low voice. Sitting here in quarantine, thinking about my prostate. That sounded like a Cat Stevens song, I think, to him. A Saturday night and I ain't got that one, right? But I didn't hear it that way. And the reason I didn't was because Bob has a more melancholy, sadder voice. Inside Bob's comedy and inside him as a person and as a persona, there is a melancholic edge to it. And what I did was what we call a substitution of chords. So he implied in his melody. That's a major chord. Sorry, it's out of tune. Right? G major, C major, roughly. I can't tune a guitar. I can't even tune a fish. I changed it to G to D minor. And that's not in the key. That's in a different key. So D minor sounds like this. And I slowed him down because I think Bob is the original shoegazer, right? So I have it going. Hear that? I'm sorry. Wrong chords. So it's sitting here in quarantine, thinking about my prostate. Here, thinking about my prostate. Here I'm at that sad. See, he thinks he's funny, but it's also, I mean, like there are a lot of dudes sitting around somewhere in quarantine worrying about their prostate. And that's why Bob is both funny and real and sad. So instead of giving him the major chord, let's go sad. Thinking about my prostate. And also by putting some time between it. Instead of going, I was here in quarantine. So I gave it some time. And I really like this song. I think, man, I wish that either, Wilco or Weezer would have made a hit out of this. But, Bob was too busy dying somewhere in obscurity on a TV show called Full House to be bothered with a little hit song. But that's how I built the song. And let's listen to it.
What comes to mind is just sitting here in quarantine worrying about my prostate. Sitting here in quarantine and thinking about my prostate. Something like that. No, it sounds like another song though. Got me another day. Well, it's Saturday night and sitting here in quarantine and thinking about my prostate. I wanna go home. Diet sodas are the end of me. I'm down. Diet sodas. Sitting here in quarantine and thinking about my prostate. I wanna go home. I wish I was wiser in quarantine. Too much sanitizer in my prostate. I'm down. I wanna go. I'm down. I wanna go. Diet sodas. Home. It's melancholy, but I like that stuff. And what it did to our skin, what it did when we see what happens, I don't know. Maybe nothing. We worry about everything.
Hi, if you're enjoying listening to Lightning Bugs, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps a lot.